For those of us that have never been in the military, the idea that a soldier, sailor, airman could have a mental illness is not something that we see as being that big a deal. In fact, we very much almost assume that anybody that says that they have PTSD is a soldier. The problem is that for our military personnel, it's a very different story. The idea of showing that weakness in front of your colleagues, your boss, um, and the shame that people put on themselves, the difficulty that they have in asking for help, the the problems that they have advancing their career once they've admitted that they're not doing well mentally. These are all things that we're going to chat about today, particularly in the lead up to the 50-year commemoration of the Vietnam War. So we're going to be talking about that and more on SPT today. Welcome to Shattered the Podcast. STP is the story of my journey from the depths of mental illness to a place where I could live again. All right, we've got to say right out the gate that no veteran, as long as you have a clear conscience, as long as you obeyed your orders and you did what you needed to do, war crimes, put that in another basket. But if you're an ordinary soldier that went and did your job, came home, there is no shame in your struggling with your mental health. There is nothing for you to be ashamed about. The fact that you struggle, the fact that you might need some help, the fact that you might need to go see a professional. You've come out of service where mental impairment is seen as the worst thing. You know, you're a soldier and all of a sudden you can't touch a weapon because you've been labeled with this mental stamp. I go the other way. I never served in the military. I have great respect for the military, our soldiers. You know, from listening to the podcast, my father, my mum's dad were both Vietnam vets. I knew them well. I knew them personally. I knew them intimately, as a son and a grandson would know. And these were men that I loved and respected. My grandfather had a secret, though, and it's a secret that we've only been able to work out years later, years after watching him self-medicate and try and ignore the problems that came to him in the nighttime, the PTSD. I wish that he was still alive so that I would be able to have a conversation with him and let him know that what he'd gone through wasn't weakness. It was an injury. And I think that's the way that we need to try to start allowing our veterans to see themselves. My brother has come home from war with wounds that you can't see. No more or less valid than the diggers that lost limbs. No more or less valid from the diggers that carried just wounds. This psychological trauma is a real wartime injury. And your pain is real and your pain is valid. And you deserve for us as a country to try and help you come to terms with your new mental state of living, whether that is trying to get you past it and over it, or even just getting you to manage it. I know how hard it is because I've seen it from the inside, watching my brother. I know how hard it is to, while you're in uniform, to say I'm struggling. And it's such a shame because I think of so many soldiers and airmen and naval personnel, sailors, that would still be in the military if the military just toned down their expectations. Like, why couldn't my brother stay in the army for another couple of years, only working a couple of days a week, not getting any more promotions, not being asked to move, but still part of that army community, rather than one day he takes off the uniform and he's no longer what he's been for the past decade at a minimum. He's not a soldier anymore. He's not part of the club. Why couldn't the army use somebody like that, 15 years in the army, as a mentor to young soldiers, a leader to help train other potential leaders? Why did they just throw him aside, as they've done with so many other veterans of our recent conflicts? These are all massive questions that I'm asking, and we can't fix them. I can't fix them. But if we keep having these conversations, if we keep talking about this stuff, maybe another veteran that you deal with, you interact with, you might have a little bit more insight in how to love them and support them and let them know that you see them. I can't imagine taking a uniform off one day and never putting it back on again, and you lose that identity. You lose everything that you were and are, and now you're a civilian, a nobody. It's trauma that I can't imagine. It's trauma that I can't understand. But if we recognize it and view it as the trauma that it is, perhaps we can help other diggers realize that there is no shame in putting your hand up and saying, you know what, I am struggling mentally. Said it before, I'll say it again to any and all veterans that may be listening to this. I am proud of you. I am grateful for you. I'm thankful for your service. And if nobody's ever asked you, please contact me through the links below. I would love to tell part of your story if you are able to. If you know a veteran and you think, you know what, I'd like to give them the opportunity to have a chat, to talk about their experience of coming home, the difficulties that they've faced, so that we can share the conversation together and we can all become part of that conversation. Now, on Friday, the 18th of August, I'm going to be at the commemoration ceremony for the marking of the 50 years of the end of the Vietnam War, the conflict that Australia was involved in. I'm going to be sitting right beside my father. He's going to be wearing his medals. My mum's going to be right next to me as well. She's going to be wearing her medal. For us, it's intensely personal. But for you that's listening, even if you just take a moment just to think of the diggers that came home, struggled in silence, not knowing that they could speak up, not having that opportunity. To any Vietnam veterans out there, once again, fellas and ladies, once again, we're proud of you. We're thankful for you, and you will not be forgotten. Hey, have a great week, everybody. I will talk to you next week. Got some exciting things coming up. Still lots and lots of things that I can't talk about yet, but when I can, I'm going to be excited to share it with you. Have a great week. Contact us at the links below. If you've got a story that you want to tell through the podcast, I would love to hear from you. All righty. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for joining us on Shattered the Podcast. I'm Mark. Special thanks to my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also to Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And we can't forget the amazing band Adelaide, who let us use their song as our theme. For more information, check us out on all your socials. STP Shattered the Podcast.